Weddings are a lot of fun, but planning can be kind of tough. There are so many details to think about, and it's easy to forget what's really important along the way.
And if you've watched this series before, you'll have heard a lot of advice from us and from other wedding vendors about planning sustainable events. But we haven't yet heard from married couples themselves.
So this season, we've invited 4 recently married couples to a dinner party to chat about their wedding planning experience, the good, the bad, and everything in between. They'll sit down with our friend Sarah, an event planner here in Victoria, to chat about their own weddings and to share their insights.
Throughout the night, we'll be treated to deliciously scrappy appies and local libations. So let's sit around the table and talk about how to get you sustainably wed.
In this episode, we'll be talking about decor, so we thought it would be fitting to start off by asking our host Sarah, owner of Function Design House, to talk about how she designed our table.
So when we're going about design, especially with the sustainability aspect in mind, it's really all about being purposeful and intentful. So we know what kind of meal we're serving, we know what needs to be on the table, and then using those elements that we functionally need to host the dinner in the design itself. So whether we have, the cocktail menu, we've got the food menu on this one, we've included the place card names on there as well. So it's just one less piece of excess paper that we don't need. When it comes to our tablescapes as well, rentals are the biggest material that we use. So nothing needs to be bought, especially in a vibrant community like Victoria. Everything here is returnable and rentable and can be enjoyed again and again across so many different celebrations. There's a way to use all the mainstay rentals that we have here on the island and still get a totally unique event every single time. I love greenery and florals as much as anyone else, and they're a fantastic thing to have on a table, and it's not something you have to actually forego if you want to take this in a sustainable route. What I've got in the habit of doing with our sustainable events is usually using actual potted plants. So either ones that couples or clients already have, which is great because it's personal and memorable, or ones that we pick out for the table like we did today, but then they go home with people. They're a lasting memento of your day. It's really about putting the thought into it from the beginning and getting a whole holistic picture about how it's going to work and then seeing which option is best. In my mind, sustainability is so much more than just a list of tips and tricks and a strict guideline you have to follow or you have to have less. It's more about challenging yourself to think in a certain way and design in a certain way and take it all into consideration before you get there. So, we have intentions, we have vendors, the people around us who are going to help us create this vision. What's the vision going to look like? I think that's the next thing, is the making it pretty, the decor, the design, aesthetic. This is something I have a particular passion for. And I know that when I started my own planning journey, I definitely fell down that Pinterest rabbit hole we've been talking about. There's so many images out there these days, and they're styled shoots and these extravagant, luxurious, floral installations and everything that's going on. So I'm curious to hear from a couple's perspective, and especially if you took the lead on your own decor, how that process looked. And I think it's a really big portion of what can lead to excess. So I'm excited to talk about how that looked and what your experience was. I mean, Rad and Rob, you would have seen so many weddings doing what you do. How did you ever narrow that down?
Well, we wanted it to be fun and tropical. Yeah. We wanted it to be the exact opposite of what people would expect from me, because my branding is all white and gold.
Nice.
And we wanted to tie in some aspects of my culture where there's the hanging flowers. So we have the flower curtain kind of idea. And the decor, we just kept it really simple because we were pretending that Rob's brother was throwing us the party. So we had to keep it simple. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. And I mean, Simon and Allie, you've talked about that kind of rustic vibe you were going for. You originally picked a venue for that, but then you shifted it to your backyard. Where did that come from, and how did you find your inspiration from that?
I mean, the venue, the initial, like the Salt Spring venue, we kind of picked at random. Right. But when we went and checked it out, it was perfect. Yeah. And it was wooded, rustic, you know, sort of farmhouse style. But then when we had to cancel, we, you know, realized, yeah, well, our backyard kind of has a farmhouse vibe too. Yes. And so we did the classic, like, millennial, those light bulbs that everyone likes, the string lights that...
The Edison bulbs?
The Edison bulb, right? Yeah. So we ended up getting like 200 feet of those and hang them in our backyard. Yeah. And we still use them to this day. Like, they've just stayed, actually our whole backyard has stayed set up for a wedding since, basically.
That's
we
really
built
cool.
a bunch of stuff for the wedding and just left it.
Yes.
Because we were like, well, now we can just party in the backyard like it's a wedding.
And I think that's a really good point, is that when we're talking about where we're hosting our weddings, that can have a really big impact on the design, what we choose to do as decor as well. And instead of choosing, you know, one-time use items, you guys actually invested into the value of your home and things that you're going to use day in, day out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Curious, I haven't actually heard a lot about your decor design from the wedding day.
Yeah. So we fell in love with the space itself, and it was kind of like a really big blank slate. So we were like, well, how do we fill it now? But I think it was really helpful to kind of use what was already there. So they had some tables and chairs. We ended up bringing some in, just to kind of supplement. But our decor was pretty minimal. We did end up having some flowers, which was nice. It was something that we actually were thinking we would go without until kind of last minute. So I don't know, a lot of things kind of fell into place for us, which was really nice. But yeah, we had these like little pods where our guests could just kind of set up wherever they wanted. They could eat with whomever they wanted, and it was just a really casual
Did you do a cocktail style reception?
Yeah, we had like food stations, and we were pretty jazzed about those. They were so cool. We were like...
It was an extended cocktail hour.
Very cool.
From cocktail hour into dinner, so there wasn't that much like having to reset up for the different portions of the evening.
Right.
Which is really great.
So, and that changes the whole kind of design process as well, right? When you don't have a sit-down dinner or as many items as you need.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You've all touched on things that I consider kind of fundamental to a more sustainable design process anyways, which is like working within your venue and using rentals and being intentional with it. Actually, using your venue is something that Michael and Casey, you guys have discussed as well, because you had a blank slate venue where you have to bring some things in. Fort Common, big brick courtyard for some context, which just has walls and floors and lights, really. So that's super cool, and it sounds like you use like functional items to bring in some color. You have a very, very beautiful venue, which, like you said, gets covered up a lot.
Yeah, you go ahead. The Bengal Lounge, one of the reasons that we were drawn to it was because we didn't have to elaborate in the decor or spend money. We didn't have chargers, we didn't have tablecloths. It was our seating chart was planned around how many tables were specific to the space. Yeah. So we didn't have to bring any extra tables and then have to put in linens. So it was really very, very simple. When we got to the table decor, then we kind of were a little stumped and a little bit like you guys had to piece things together. And so it ended up just buying like bulk greenery that we pulled together and into like a long strain, and had friends on the morning of who were putting it together, and leftovers from the wedding from the night before.
Honestly though, that's a sustainable practice. People are getting married, let's use their stuff too.
They had way more flowers than us. They were like, wow, look at all these roses. There were orchids, there were vases, there was so much for us to pick at.
So we used.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. But there's something so nice about a venue, and that was something that we were choosing a venue based on the fact that we didn't want to have to decorate.
Yes.
We didn't want to have to think about it. We wanted it to be about that experience.
Interesting. No, I really like that. I think it's an important point as well, is using the space that you're in and maybe picking it a bit intentionally. Although it sounds like a big theme of this is some of the sustainable aspects that happened kind of came unintentionally, which is great too. Did anyone do the DIY aspect with their decor? Did you go with either what the venue provided or rentals?
We did a mix.
Yeah.
We did a mix of rentals, and then I had some things that I would loan out to couples.
Right.
Like we had glass frames that I would write on with like paint pens, so I just did those for our wedding instead. That everything, like the majority of it was rented, and of course the regretted pineapples.
Right, so the thing you did DIY, you're like, no.
Shouldn't have done that.
What happened?
Well, they turned out beautifully, but like looking back on it, I was just like spray painting pineapples. That is not sustainable.
Right. Then you can't eat it.
And you can't eat it, and like spray paint's not good for the environment. Like just so many things. We made a mistake.
Did you find it really added an impact, or would you have been pretty happy without them?
I think we could have gone like faux pineapples, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have to go real, but I think it was one of those Pinterest things.
Yeah.
Damn.
We were a victim to Pinterest.
Everyone who's been victimized by Pinterest, please raise your hand.
It was one of those things that was very last minute that you were doing. I remember like
And
out on the balcony
with cardboard down.
Yeah. Which didn't fully cover. I swear that balcony still has gold paint on it somewhere.
It was a rental, it's fine.
Yeah.
No, I think it's helpful for couples to hear though, because I mean, working within the industry, we always think of rentals because we know these people and we know these companies, but a lot of people do exactly that. They're like, hey, I saw this on Pinterest and I'm gonna stay up all night, the night before my wedding, and make these string lights or these garlands, and it often doesn't have the impact, and it's kind of stressful.
Yeah.
Ours was like looking back, I didn't even think about this, but a lot of the things that for us, was a little like we didn't really purchase a whole lot of new things.
You bought stuff from Dollarama.
No. But that was but that was the only thing that I feel like okay, this is not really my value, but like I'm gonna go with it because
Again, we all do it.
yeah. But we got our frames from an antique store.
Yeah.
Like we got our like bowl for the
bowl from
like a Value Village. Like we got the mirror from your dad. Like we try to look around and see what we can utilize first before proceeding to like, oh, we need to buy something. So it was really just flowers and then the vases because like I mean like
we did some of the stuff ourselves, like the name tags were printed on recycled paper that we did ourselves because really it's so tiny and
Want to add some personality, right? Like at the end of the day, it's hopefully good design isn't just about how it looks, but how it makes people feel and like how it reflects you and what you're trying to bring to the day. And it sounds like you all employed a lot of really good techniques to, whether you knew it or not, actually make it more sustainable than some, whether it was rentals or adding in the personal touches or using functional items to kind of bring in personality. Twist, who's going to bring out our next cocktail, actually, they have all of their own glassware as well. And they're like in these ornate cups, and it's so useful when it comes to adding some personality to tables, which it sounds like we got stuck on. But it could be food, it could be drink. So that's really cool.
it's kind of what Navia was saying earlier about like breaking what the traditional like not schedule but parameters of it. When you're kind of building a wedding that is unique to the couple, then you can ask that question. Like we didn't have a cake either because we were like, well, why are we gonna cut a cake? Why? And then we were like, why do we cut a cake actually? And then you were like, that was probably one night of wine drinking where we were like, why would we do that? Should we do that? Is it part of our culture?
we Googled that and it was like it was around what was that?
A queen? A princess?
No. It was it was like a very like it's to promote like
fertility.
Fertility, yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. And we were like, doesn't apply.
Honestly, it's a weird moment at weddings. So like,
It really, and we were already, because we had a plated meal, we were already getting a dessert. So we were like, well, do we actually need that?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of those questions that we were like, no, we don't need to. We can drop that.
Yeah, with the cake, it's interesting because we had a cake because I love cake. But
that's a good reason.
Yeah, but we weren't going to have a formal cake cutting. That wasn't part of the timeline. And then we got forced into it by the moms.
So we've been victimized by moms and Pinterest and Dollarama. Oh, I love it. But speaking of needs, should we get another cocktail?
Sure.
I need one.
We invited Twist of Fate, a local event bartending company, to make our couples a mocktail featuring local and sustainable ingredients, something they specialize in.
This is Lifting the Fog. It does feature some excellent local ingredients. The first one that we're going to use here is from really like right up the street, maybe 150 meters away, Silk Road Tea, a great local company. And we're using their vanilla tea in this cocktail. So we're doing 3 ounces of this. We've also got a fresh lavender syrup that we make using a nice local supplier of lavender, totally organic as well. So we've got chilled vanilla tea, lavender, and then fresh lemon juice. Really nice light floral option. We do a take on this as well that does have local gin and vermouth in it. Also, if you're so inclined, so once again, this is called Lifting the Fog. Nice, light, refreshing, great spring summer cocktail for those who are choosing to not imbibe. There it is.
But seriously, so pretty. You know, the glassware, the garnish, the color, the taste.
That's incredibly good.
Lifting the Fog, good name too. Curious for any of you, and this is sometimes a big thing to own up to, and there's no judgment here. Speaking from experience of having planned and designed weddings that had lots of waste, was there anything that you found really wasteful on your wedding day? Like, what was left over? What didn't get reused?
Yeah, we had extra takeout boxes. Yeah, because we went to Amazon and everything is in bulk order, and we only used several because all our food did get consumed, which was good, surprising.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How it would all work out. We're
Yeah.
like, we're gonna let our guests take food home, and before dinner was like supposed to be over, we're like, oh, it's all gone. So,
Which is good.
So yummy.
Yeah.
But we definitely have a lot of takeout
Takeout boxes
Yeah.
left. I'm curious too, was there anything in your designs that you felt was underappreciated? Like when you were maybe staying up, making those place cards, and then, they just got tossed aside? Or if it wasn't at your own wedding, maybe if you thought about it but didn't go for it because of that reason?
Bouquet, actually.
Yeah.
I went back and forth on it because we get all the wedding galleries back at the end of the season and everyone has this gorgeous photo of their bouquet. And I was like, should we get a bouquet? Should we not? And that kept me up at night.
Yeah.
That's because every time we'd saved anywhere else in our wedding budget, that budget went into flowers. So it wasn't really saving, it was just reallocating any additional funds into flowers.
I like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that.
But the bouquet was one thing that I was like, we don't really need that. But
Did you end up doing one?
it. No, didn't end up doing one. We ended up just going with like a floral headpiece for me and a boutonniere for Rob.
Any regrets on that?
No, actually, I think the only thing I would have liked instead of the boutonniere, because it's new now, is that we had in like previous weddings was the pocket flower.
Flowers,
Yeah, or like the lapel of flowers, just because that just adds like another interesting element, and it's a unique way to have your personal flowers displayed.
Very cool. I like that. Simon and Ali, I know we've already talked a lot about how your decor just ended up now being a feature of your home, which is really cool. And that is something like couples do. Sometimes couples also bring elements from their home into the wedding, which is super cool. Would highly recommend looking into it.
Which we did as well.
Did you? Okay.
Well, we took all our furniture from inside and just put it outside.
See?
Yeah.
Genius.
That works.
We sound crazy.
People loved that.
The amount of love seats we've taken from people's houses to put in lounges.
Yes.
Yeah.
So using what's literally hyper local to you and bring it back. But maybe this is a good time to touch on the one thing that you thought was maybe going to be not necessarily decor, but you thought was going to be more environmentally friendly and compostable, but turned out not to be.
Yeah, we didn't realize that doesn't really exist here, like the compostable facility
So
for
what was it?
the cup. Yeah. We had compostable plastic cups for the draft beer, and turns out that's not a sustainable approach. Not I mean, I guess there's probably worse approaches.
Heck yeah.
Definitely worse. But I don't exactly know all the information on it, but they don't compost properly without a facility. Is that correct?
Simon's right. Compostable plastics are a highly unregulated industry, and it takes a specialized industrial compost facility to break them down. They can't be put in your green bin. There aren't any of these facilities on Vancouver Island, and there are actually very few facilities in North America in general. Unfortunately, these are still single-use items that will most likely end up in the landfill, so reuse and rentals are definitely the way to go.
And that's kind of a regret actually, because we were already renting tables from tables and tablecloths, so we could have rented glassware if we had known.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, when I think about it too, it's a nice way to, elevate the specialness of your day a little bit. It's a little bit fancier anyways, and it's good for the environment, and you don't have to clean up as much. You don't even have to wash them. Put them in a rack, send them back to the rental company. But things you might not know if you're just starting out your planning journey, right?
Our concern was focused around, I was just immediately thought, oh, glass cups, backyard, bad mix,
Yeah,
there's gonna be
fair.
people running around, probably barefoot, stepping on broken glass. So I went with a safer option, but I imagine there's probably non-shatterable rentals. There's definitely that option. So in hindsight, would have done that approach for sure.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you've already kind of spoken to our last area of interest, which is what would you do differently, or what would have been helpful to know? So like you were saying, that other rental options are available, and what are you doing for dinner? And you would have done compostable cups differently. But is there anything else anyone would have done differently besides limit their time on Pinterest?
I think I would have done the signage differently, because we just made our own table signs, and because our ceremony was at a park, we put up a sign and stuff, but maybe a different way to, rather than paper or something, do something differently that way, because at the end of it we had so much waste from that. That was probably
the signage?
Maybe not the biggest waste, but the most pointless one. It's it could have been done so differently. But.
That's a great point, because it's something that is customized to you, and then it's not really, welcome to the wedding of isn't going to be used again in your home.
Exactly.
But there could be, from a design challenge way, a way to make it either a piece that was used in your home later, or now there's companies like Structure locally who makes these big wood pieces that you can custom paint and stick vinyl on, and people use again and again and again. But again, how do you know until you know? That's a great point. I like that. Anything else anyone would do differently besides what we talked about?
I think maybe attire. In terms of bridesmaids buying dresses and groomsmen and ties and pocket squares and things. I think we had a pretty large overall wedding party.
How many people did you have?
So.
Okay, so my side had 4.
Including you? No.
Yeah.
And I had 9 groomsmen.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we went for it.
Yeah.
He helps me maintain all my friendships.
And everyone had +1s other than one person who didn't bring one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our wedding was very small overall.
Right.
It was almost 50% of our wedding
was
the collective wedding party and +1s.
And did they wear, did you dictate what they wore?
So, yeah, we had that in mind. I had all the bridesmaids in the same color and same same brand of dress. And I think ultimately that really wasn't as important as it felt. It was something that kind of set the tone for our wedding and our colors and the decor, and so it was just sort of we thought it held a lot of weight, and then that was just, it was cost. Everyone who wasn't part of our wedding party looked beautiful anyways. We're just happy to have people there, and we love them no matter what they're wearing, so we're that really doesn't matter. So I think we could have reduced them having to buy new dresses and things that they might not wear again.
Wouldn't wear again.
Yeah.
The groomsmen rented.
They did rent their suits,
so that was good. I gave them a choice, and I felt it worked out in the end. And we were a little worried, if the suits don't fit nice to them, that's a concern, because the aesthetic was a big factor.
Right.
It worked out.
Good.
Yeah.
But by sometimes trying to kind of control that aesthetic to that degree, it causes more stress and more excess, all those kind of things. Yeah. That makes sense. And I think you guys have done a really good job of bringing it back to our next topic, really, and what matters is who's there and the guests that are around, and everyone looked good and felt good anyway. So yeah, excited to continue on that conversation.
For sure.
Yay! Good job, guys. That yay's the end.